Our gospel lesson for today is actually misprinted in your worship folder. It's from the 13th chapter of the Gospel according to St. John, verse 31, verses 31 to 34. When Jesus had gone out, he said to them, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify in himself and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." This is the gospel of our Lord. Please be seated. Sometimes I wonder how much Jesus talked. You know, at a dinner party. Was he the life of the party? The one who was just always yakking and telling jokes and carrying on? Or was he the quiet one who would say, "Oh no, let me do the dishes. I love to do the dishes. Let me just sit quietly and do the dishes," because he just wanted some quiet time. You know the type, right? Like, are you one of those people at a dinner party who just likes to get up and do the dishes because you know there you have a job to do? And at the table, you don't have to sit and talk to everybody. Or maybe you're going to be in a gathering of people this Mother's Day, and maybe you're one of the people who does a lot of talking. Or maybe you would prefer to be out in the garden and you just plant the flowers and you know when they're planted, and then your work is done and you will go inside and you will read a book because you prefer the quiet time. The difference between introverts and extroverts is that introverts get their energy from being by themselves. It's not that they don't like to be with people, it just takes energy for them. Extroverts get their energy from being around people. And so if an introvert and an extrovert are married to each other, and the introvert wakes up first, that person might go and have coffee and read the paper, and when the extrovert gets up, it's beautiful because the introvert has had his or her time, and then the extrovert gets up and they talk. But if the extrovert gets up first, the person's like stomping their toe and can hardly wait for the introvert to get up. And then the introvert gets up and just wants 5 minutes alone, but the extrovert's like, "Hey, let's walk the dog, let's go have breakfast, and I just wonder, was Jesus an introvert or was he an extrovert? Did he like to talk a lot, or did he just only say things if they really needed to be said? And I don't know that we'll ever have an answer to that question, but I do get the sense that the things that the people wrote down that Jesus said, because he wasn't an autobiographer, this Jesus, he didn't write down his own, the things I think that are most important, the things people should know. He wasn't his own scribe. But the things that people wrote down that he said are the things that are important. There are probably things he said that have slipped through the cracks. But the things that he said are the most important things. They're not going to be the small talk kind of things that we hear. So today, when he tells his disciples, "I'm going to be with you just a little while longer, because that cross is waiting for me, and I know I'm about to be crucified. I'm going to be with you just a little while longer," he could have said any number of things. But he didn't say, "Take the roast out of the oven after it's been in there for 2 hours and 10 minutes, not any longer." He didn't say, "Make sure that you organize and have an action plan." He didn't say, "Go out and die with me." He didn't say, "Keep the faith. Make sure that you keep the faith." He didn't say, "The money is under the mattress." He said, "Love one another. This is how the world will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. You know, it seems so simple, but it's also so complex. Love one another. Love one another. At River of Grace, our mission is simple: love God and love others. But it's so complex, too. Love God, love others. Next Sunday, we're going to have our first Charter Sunday. This will be the first of 3 or maybe 4 Charter Sundays. We're going to open our charter, and we're going to invite you who want to be part of what God is up to in our life together in the next 2 years to sign with your own name, your own handwriting, onto a flowing river in this picture. Yes, I want to be part of what we're up to. Love God, love others. And it's so simple, but it can be so complex. I like that Jesus didn't say something like, have pi memorized. I can get the first few digits of it, but that's only with a math teacher in the room. Love God, love others. Love God, love others. Love one another. You know, sometimes it's so close to us to love others. It's like right in our grasp. I want you to think about 2 things during this sermon this morning, and it's not even a long one. I want you to think about 2 things. I want you to think about a time in this last week, just the last 7 days, that you loved someone. A time that you actually made a conscious effort to choose love. That you went out of your way for someone else. It might not have been convenient, and it might not have been simple, and it might not have been easy. Maybe there were more Cheerios on the floor than you could have counted at that moment, moms. Or maybe you had to forgive in circumstances that just weren't very pretty. Or maybe you not only went the extra mile, but it was the extra 67 miles. Or maybe you were more generous than you felt like you wanted to be, but you just made that conscious decision that you were going to love. Jesus knew that he was going away from his disciples, and he asked them to love one another. He asked them to do something that they already knew how to do. It was in there, they could do it. It might not have been easy, but they could do it. So has everybody thought of a time that they chose love in the last week? Just a couple, I'm not going to ask you to share. Relax. Can I just get a couple nods? Oh, goody, thank you. Love that one, you nod. Love that one, you nod. And now I want to ask you to think of a time that you didn't choose to love. You could have, but you just didn't. Maybe you chose unlove. You didn't want to go that extra mile or that extra 67 miles. Or you chose to hang on to the grudge. Or it just hurt too much. You just didn't know how you could possibly extend your heart again. Or you didn't know if you had any more inside you to give. Can you think of that time too? Now, I'm just telling you from where I'm standing that your nods don't look as happy as they did the first time I saw you nod. What I really like about how Jesus says to his disciples, love one another, he doesn't even say, love each other perfectly. He doesn't even say, make sure you love each other without making any mistakes in it at all. He says, just love each other with as much as you can, with as good as you've got, with whatever you have in you. I have a neighbor who keeps telling me that she's going to come to church one of these days. So I asked her a couple of weeks ago, hey, I keep waiting for one of these days. Can you just give me a hint when that day is going to be? And she said, I want to be honest with you. I said, perfect. We're off to a really good start. When's that day going to be? What's honest? And she said, I just feel like I want to get my life together before I come. I said, oh gosh, if you wait for that, you're never going to fit in. You need to come before you have your life together. Because if we do a random survey of people who have their lives all together, I'm pretty sure that none of us would raise our hands. We don't have to be perfect to be here. In fact, if we were perfect, I'm pretty sure none of us would be here. That's not the business we're in. We're not a gathering of perfect people, but we're a gathering of people. And Jesus says, love one another. Imperfections and all. They're like God's little scratch and dent section. Mother's Day is a day of the year that gets almost as much attention in churches as Christmas and Easter, it seems. Because it's a day that people have almost as much hopes or even hurts or expectations with it as people do with Christmas and Easter. Because for whatever reason, our hearts are as exposed as much on this day as they are on Christmas and Easter and other great days. For some people, it feels like it's just any other day of the year, but it's really not. The Dennis did a beautiful job of welcoming us to church today. Thank you, Dennis. But a lot of us have just a lot of stuff that goes on when we think about our moms. Maybe it's not the relationship that we want to have, or maybe our mom isn't here anymore, or maybe we just really want to have kids and we don't. Or maybe we don't know our moms. Or maybe we've tried to build, to repair something in that relationship and it hasn't happened. Or maybe there's been a divorce and the family hasn't been what we wanted it to be. Or maybe it's been so many years since we've been able to hold our mom's hand and there's nothing, like what Dennis said, there's nothing that can replace that hug. And I wish, dear people, that I had some magic words that could take away the pain or the heartache that might come with you on a day like today. Or that could help those of you who have a bouncing little toddler say, oh no, the pastor's being sad and serious on Mother's Day and I just have this baby and I want to feel all happy and good. And I'm afraid that there isn't a magic potion that I can pour over us. But I can tell you that even Jesus says, here's my body and it's broken for you. So I know what brokenness is. And here's my blood and it's poured out for you. I know what it is to pour out love on my people. And even Jesus says, I meet you here in the word and in the sacrament and in the love and in the fellowship. And no, I can't give you everything, Jesus says, in that meal, but at the same time, I have a God who can give you everything. Remember, he says to his followers, love one another. Not with a perfect love, but just be real for one another. Just hold on to one another. Because you're going to go through this bumpy thing called life. But you're going to have one another. And a mother's love can be a grand and wonderful and beautiful thing. And even that is but a reflection, just a little reflection of this mighty love that I have for you. I asked you to remember those two things, a time this week when you chose love and a time when you didn't. Your faces looked happier when you recounted the time that you chose love. I want to invite you to remember that choosing love is not only something that will make your heart happy, but it's also the design that Jesus has for you. It's the design that God has for us as a family of faith. It's a design that pours out new life among us. And when Jesus says to his followers, I'll be with you for only a little while longer, but then I'm going to leave, but love one another, he's also saying, I'm going to be gone, but my love for you is still going to be with you and how you love one another. And it might not be perfect, but I'm going to be with you. You'll be able to feel it. And it's something that happens magical and mysterious and mystical and wonderful on the love of the cross. Take that. Wrap yourself in it. Claim it. And just like, I think that's little Zach. Is that Zach? Just like we can hear Zach kind of revel in that childlike wonder of what it is to be here. I want you to revel in the childlike wonder of what it is to be God's child. I'm guessing he doesn't really understand where he is and what's all up with what's going on as we worship today. But I know that his mom and his dad aren't going to let anything horrible happen to him today. I'm guessing that his mom and his dad cherish him and love him all the way down to his toes and beyond. That's how your God feels about you today and every day. So walk in that love. Feel in the chambers of your heart the powerful mother's love that comes to you. And choose love. I know that every day God chooses love for you.